Hi, and welcome back to a Gridiron Friday edition of the Cheap Seats. I'm your host, Steve Willis. Let's get right into it. The NFL has plenty for us to talk about. We are going to talk just a little bit about college football, and I know all of you guys are tired of hearing about the Manti Te'o thing. But I do have one football related question regarding this entire thing with his girlfriend. Here's the football related question. What is this going to do to his draft stock? Obviously, he's in California right now preparing for the NFL draft. What is going to happen to Manti Te'o when it comes at the end of April? They're ready to start picking. If I were a general manager, here's the only thing that I'm really thinking of. I'm about to pay this guy a whole lot of money. Number one, do I need him? Number two, how did he do in his bowl games? Number three, how did he do with the media? Well, number one, if you're even looking at him, you obviously need him. There are a few teams out there you're going to pick a little bit later in the draft. They're going to need a middle linebacker. They're going to need somebody that can play in a cover. Philadelphia Eagles are a very good example of that. Their middle linebacker core right now is just underachieving. They need to get some fresh faces in there. The Chicago Bears would be a very good pick. The Dallas Cowboys could use middle linebacker help. There are quite a few teams out there that could use help in that area. My suggestion would be to take a look at where he is in the draft, where you're picking who else is around, because this kid is really, he performs well. He's got a lot of talent. The question, if I were a general manager, would be, how does he do in big games? Well, he didn't do that well in the national championship game. Now, that said, he's done well in other big games. The Oklahoma game, he stepped up. The USC game, he stepped up. Those are big games as well. But under the bright lights versus the SEC, national attention, even more so than they had all year, he was pretty much held pat. Now, here comes the tricky part. In an interview with Jeremy Schaap, he had admitted that this whole thing with this hoax of a girlfriend ended up getting into his head for this game. That's where I have a problem. That's where I have a real issue. If this gets in your head enough to affect what should be the biggest game of your life, I have a real problem with that. What happens when you go to New York and either the Giants or Jets aren't playing well? The microphone gets to you. You start getting harassed by that New York media. What happens then? How is that getting into your head? What if they make the Super Bowl? Something happens, you meet a girl. Now, here comes Te'o with another girlfriend. Is this one going to be real? Is this one not going to be real? This is going to follow you, my friend. It's going to follow you into the NFL. Now, the question is, what are you going to do when that time comes? If I'm a general manager, I'm really looking at that hard. I want to know what you're going to do there and how you're going to respond on the field. Off the field, I don't care. You can do what you want off the field. On the field is where I need you to perform. That's where I'm paying you the money. That's where I need you to perform. So there's some food for thought when the end of April comes, the draft starts getting closer. You're going to see a lot of general managers taking a good hard look at that aspect of it, because when you're throwing that kind of money at somebody, you need to know. that you are going to be spending that money as wisely as you possibly can. Obviously, nobody knows for sure. Somebody can get drafted, become a real bust, a la Ryan Leaf. But the Ryan Leafs and the Jamarcus Russells aside, you have a pretty good indication as to what you're getting and who you're getting. With Te'o, you really got to question his ability to keep the personal life personal and get the playing life where he's supposed to be. Now, just to move things along here, a couple of coaching changes. Steve Spagnuolo got fired. Not a huge surprise. The Saints defense took a hit, and he really needed to step up. Obviously, with Sean Payton being gone for the entire, being suspended for the whole year, and they were on their backup to their backup head coach. Spagnuolo really needed to step up, and that defense had to do something special for them to really make any kind of a push, and they couldn't in their division. I mean, they were weak. They had a stagnant D. It wasn't in their best interest to hang on to Spagnuolo, and he's gone. And they're gonna have to fit somebody in that defense that's going to be able to take a bunch of players that really don't have a lot of cohesiveness. They've been beaten up pretty bad by this whole bounty situation, and the team itself, a lot of the guys amongst that team, a lot of questions on who trusts who, and who's going to be part of the whole mix in that defense, and it's going to be rough. It's going to be tough to transition, because no matter what you do, a lot of people in that defense are going to be very disliked in the NFL, and there's going to be a lot of cleaning house to do on the defensive side of the ball. The biggest issue is the fact that they were dead last in run defense and in total defense. They yielded the most yards ever in a single season. I mean, they allowed over 7,000 yards against them. That is a whole lot. The fact that they went 7-9 just said nothing to the fact that their defense allowed them to just get out of games quickly. When you're allowing 7,000 yards a year, at the end of games, you're beat up, and you can't close a game that way. And Spagnuolo just, he needed to step up and shore that up, and he couldn't do it. So Spagnuolo's out. I'll tell you who's in, though. Rob Ryan. It did not take long for him to find a new place to call home. The St. Louis Rams picked up Rob Ryan, and that I think that actually was a phenomenal pickup.
7 continents.
Oh,
Whatever it takes.
damn it. Okay, try that again. I'll tell you who's in, though. Rob Ryan. The Rams pick up Rob Ryan to help shore up a defense that really had its struggles this year. And really, I don't think Rob Ryan was as much of the problem in Dallas as what a lot of people think. Jerry Jones needed a fall guy for this year, and he can't blame it on Romo. He can't blame it on the offense. God help him if he were to blame it on himself. So he's going to have to blame it on somebody. Who's he taking out on? He takes it out on Rob Ryan, somebody who a lot of Cowboys fans weren't really in love with anyway. So that being the case, it's really not going to be that big of a loss to Rob Ryan, because he was walking out of a situation where the owner really wasn't helping him out that much, and walking into a situation where I think the Rams absolutely need somebody to shore up that defense and really, move them in the right direction. Now, granted, the Cowboys defense, they weren't awesome last year. They're right in the middle of the pack. They were 19th. They were 17th against the run. They were 21st against the pass. So he was bringing them up, because before that they were awful. I mean, they were in the bottom third of the league, but now they're sitting right around the middle. I mean, still lower part of the middle, but they're sitting right around the middle. They're moving up a little bit. A lot of that defense, a lot of the problem on that defense was, having to play with a short field, defense on the field a long time. You had a lot of 3-and-outs by the Cowboys offense. Tony Romo bringing, throwing interceptions, forcing that short field. So that really didn't help. So that defense was playing with its back to the wall more often than not. So it doesn't help out the statistics, but the defense itself was doing pretty good. They were forcing a lot of field goals where they could have easily been giving up touchdowns. So we will give Ryan a pass on that. But Jeff Fisher, he has had a decent relationship with the Ryan family. And so he kind of went out, reached out to Rob Ryan. It's funny because Ryan said that he'd be out of work for 5 minutes was his quote. More like 10. It didn't take long. The Rams picked him up. And I think it's going to end up being a really good pickup for the Rams. I think they're gonna make this a hire that's definitely worth what they're gonna pay him. So that pretty much wraps it up for me. I do have to leave with one thing. I know I only talk about football on Friday, but I have to give you this. The New Orleans Hornets have decided that they're going to change the team's nickname to the Pelicans. The Pelicans. The Fighting Pelicans. The New Orleans who's going to be scared of these guys? The Pelicans. What the NBA needs to understand. I mean, this is the difference between the NFL and the NBA. The NFL is blue collar. The NBA is all flash, and here's why. The NFL has names like the Vikings, the Cowboys, the Bears. The NBA, the Magic, the Jazz, the Pelicans. It's hilarious. It really is. The Pelicans. Well, good luck to them. They're still gonna. I don't know. The owner just decides. Apparently he bought the team. He can name it whatever he wants. I don't know. David Stern has already said he's not going to object to the name change, and the league is expected to expedite the change at the start of the season. So as of next year, New Orleans fans, you're going to be rooting for the New Orleans Fighting Pelicans. That is phenomenal. Anyhow, this has been the Cheap Seats Friday Gridiron Edition. You guys have a great weekend. We're going to come back on Monday. I'm pushing for an interview right now to talk with MMA fighter Nate Lavelle. I'd love to have him here. If anything, I'll at least get a radio interview. Get that on. I'm going to get that on next week for you guys. There's a benefit fight in Niles, Michigan, coming up in the middle of February 16th actually. And one of the fighters, Nate Lavelle, he's going to be fighting in a grappling match. Now this is all for charity, and hopefully, cross my fingers, going to try and get a one-on-one with the promoter as well. I'm not going to promise it, but we're going to work on it. Anyhow, we're going to try and get that for you next week. For now, it's been the Cheap Seats. We'll see you on Monday.